Welcome to today's session on British boarding schools. I'm Anjali Radbir from Writers Key. We're an education consultancy which is based out of New Delhi, India. We normally deal with college applications and students who want to go abroad to study. But we felt that we really represent quality education. And I think it was really important to also showcase a very brilliant opportunity for students to go and study in British boarding schools. British boarding schools are known for their premier education, the kind of facilities they offer, the kind of nurturing they do of the student. So we tied up with William's company, which is called Which Boarding School, to bring to the Indian student the experience of what it could be to study at a British boarding school. I have with me today William Wilcox, who's the chairman and founder of Which Boarding School. I also have his team member, Reem Rowe, who's the marketing manager for them. I'm also joined with Michelle Metcalf from Haileybury School, one of the top schools in England, as well as Sally Cooper-New from Malvern College. And it is my pleasure to welcome everyone today to this platform. It's a brand new beginning for us in a very different area, and we're really excited with this opportunity. So I'm going to ask William to kick off with what it is that got him into this area, what is his expertise, and how can we guide students through this process. William, can you hear me?
Yes, and I'm hoping that I've shared my screen.
Yes.
And hopefully it will become a full screen. Yeah. Okay, so I hope everyone can see my screen now. My name is William. Thank you to Anjali, who has done the bulk of the organising for today's webinar. And I'm very proud to now be working in partnership with her. And this is the first event that we've held together. So I hope that everyone tuning in will find it of huge benefit. And I'd like to thank also Michelle and Sally for participating this afternoon and really being able to give everybody a really good view of two really top schools within the UK. We're here because all of us believe that British boarding schools are really the very, very best options anywhere in the world. Indeed, the OECD on a number of occasions has described independent, that's private boarding schools within the UK, as offering the very best academic education possible. The boarding schools within that independent sector allow international families to access that excellence of which we've already spoken. The Independent Schools Association does a census each year, finding out about how many international students there are. And you'll see that currently there are over 55,000 international students at boarding schools in the UK. And this slide is just a snapshot of the countries and the number of students that come from them. For those students who don't have English as a first language, then immersion in a boarding school environment for a student will allow, within a year, complete fluency within the English language. Just as Britain is a very diverse culture, boarding schools represent that. The last school I was in was proud to tell me they had 40 different nationalities within their school. So what makes British boarding schools so good? Well, one, of course, and at the core of all of them is academic excellence, as we've already heard. But beyond that, because students are living there, they have a completely full day where they can take part in sport, music, drama, art, with some outstanding facilities. The classes are small, much smaller than you find elsewhere, and the breadth of opportunity is incredibly broad. So schools may be particularly strong in some subject areas. They may be particularly strong in sport or one particular sport. They may have a focus on performing arts. But the breadth is the truly unique thing about them. And quirky little societies that maybe only a few students join, but things that may spark an interest that will last a lifetime, or even perhaps even lead to a future vocation. However excellent they are, not all schools will fit every child. And I've got a very personal experience of that. I'm not going to say how many decades ago it was that I was at boarding school myself, but it was a few decades ago. I had 5 years, and I can honestly say that I loved almost every moment of those 5 years. My younger brother joined the same school the term after I left. It was the same school, the same house parent, the same teachers, the same opportunities, the same curriculum. And yet his experience was very different to mine. And that was nothing to do with the school. The school hadn't changed. What was different is the fact that my brother and I had different strengths and different interests. So what worked for me didn't necessarily work for him. So that's a real passion of mine now when I talk to parents about how important it is to match the school to the child. So when we have discussions with parents, we need to find out as much as possible. We need to find out what their aspirations are. We need to talk to the parents in depth, and if appropriate, talk to the students as well. They need to tell us whether they want a boys only, girls only, co-educational environment. They need to tell us what subjects they want to study, and indeed even what curriculum they want their child to study, whether it be IB, A-level, etc. What the strengths of the child are, what perhaps the weaknesses of the child are, what the opportunities the school must provide that individual child. We need to find out all that information. Using a good quality consultant, such as I'd like to say ours and Jali's, means that we will find out as much as we possibly can about that individual child. And then using our deep knowledge of the boarding school sector, we will then be able to hopefully draw up a short list of 5 or 6 schools that we believe match the criteria set out by the parents and the child. Sometimes a parent will get to the stage where the choice comes down to really, really fine things between 2 or 3 schools. It might be down to, for example, that a parent has visited 2 or 3 schools and they really don't know which to choose. I'm thinking of, for example, a 6th form parent choosing a school for A-levels. And it might come down to finding out the academic results of those 3 schools in just the subjects that that child is going to study. It might be down to location. It might be down to the proportion of full boarders within the school. But all that information, however great it is or however specific it is, that is something that we will be able to help the parents find out. Having drawn up a short list of schools, we won't then just abandon the parent. We will ask schools to send further information to those schools of particular interest. We will arrange visits if possible. We will get prospectuses sent. We will talk to the parents about guardianship and even give general advice on visas if required. In other words, we will help the parents and the family every step of the way, from the very start until the very moment they start at the school of their choice. So, which boarding school have joined with Writers' Key so that parents in India have the very best? They have someone local on the ground to them, who they know is working in partnership with an organisation based in the UK which regularly visits and has deep knowledge of the boarding school sector. So we believe you'll have the very best in terms of locality, whether it be in India or based in the UK. We get most of our inquiries now come from parents that we've helped previously. And I think that's testament to the quality of the service that we provide, the fact that people feel that they can recommend us to friends and colleagues of their own. So if you're looking for a boarding school, even for September 2020 or September 21 or even beyond that, then I would urge you to, if you're based in India, in the first instance, to contact Anjali on the number and email address provided. Thank you very much indeed. And I'd like now to pass you to Michelle, who will tell you a little bit about Haileybury.
William, do you want to stop sharing your screen?
Yeah, I will do that.
Thank you.
I don't know why it seems to have frozen. Is that better?
Perfect, thank you. Here we are. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much. My name is Michelle Metcalfe. I'm the head of admissions at Haileybury, which is an independent boarding school about 20 miles north of London. Our first picture here, as you can see, we are set in 600 acres of rural Hertfordshire, but only 30 minutes on the train. Most boarding schools in the UK are situated in beautiful countryside, and that's a trademark of a boarding school, but many like ourselves, are not too far away from major cities and towns as well. So what can you expect? Why study in a UK boarding school? Well, William's outlined some really key points earlier, but I think I want to talk about the academic side, what you might expect academically as a parent if you were to come to Haileybury or a school like ourselves. The pastoral care, so the people that will be looking after your child and looking after their well-being and their safety and their health when they're here. The co-curricular opportunities. The international aspect of sending your child to a school in the UK, that they're not just amongst British pupils, that they're with pupils from all over the world, and the other international outlook aspects of those opportunities too. University pathways. You know, we talk a lot about the fact that a British university, a British education rather, is a good stepping stone, a good pathway to a top university. How our alumni networks operate in terms of giving your child additional opportunities once they leave the school, and how do you choose the right school for your child? So we'll start with the academic, and I think the first thing to say is that most boarding schools have very highly qualified and dedicated teaching staff. Here at Haileybury, all of our staff live here on campus with their families and their cats and dogs. It is a way of life. It isn't a job that they check in at 9 o'clock in the morning and leave at 3:15 in the afternoon. The teachers here and in most boarding schools are working with your child all day, right into the evening, whether they're tutoring, running activities, additional clinics. So they get to know your children really, really well. And it's a choice that teachers make to come into boarding schools because they want that immersion and that dedication. So you can be assured that you're going to get very dedicated teaching staff. State-of-the-art facilities, well, that almost goes hand in hand with coming to a British boarding school. You know, Apple classrooms, the latest digital technology, artificial intelligence software, all additional tools that help teachers understand your child as a learner and as an individual more clearly. Excellent results. And excellent results doesn't necessarily mean they're right at the top of the league tables. And I think one thing I'd like to convey to you today is that league tables are indicate how selective schools are, not necessarily how good the quality of the teaching is. So excellent results, it could be that you're a non-selective school and take a really broad range of abilities, but actually your results are excellent for the intake that you have. And others, of course, we're a top 6 IB school in the country, and we are obviously a more selective school. But league tables are there. The schools at the top of the league tables are there sort of because they are particularly selective. Academic enrichment and scholarship opportunities. Academic enrichment might be scholarship clubs, Oxbridge clubs, Medivet support for those that have specific career pathways in mind, and additional scholarship opportunities. Outreach and partnership opportunities too, I'll talk about that, and then also academic mentoring. So first of all, sending your child overseas, we know that there's a huge amount of trust involved and needed for you to do that. Again, most of our schools have on-site medical centres. We have a team of doctors and nurses here based on the campus who are there to look after all of our pupils. We have a wellbeing centre where our deputy head of the safeguarding and wellbeing team are based together with the pastoral team who look after our pupils, and pupils can drop in at any point of the day or evening to talk to somebody. The house parent, house masters, house mistresses, the tutor team in the house, they're all dedicated. A team of resident matrons, resident tutors as well. They're all there dedicated to the care of your children in that particular boarding house. A chaplain, peer mentors, the list goes on, but schools like ours who have been existed for a long time have a large number of people that your child can talk to and who are dedicated to the care, their pastoral care, their well-being when they're here at school. Co-curricular opportunities. Well, I put 4 pictures on here, but actually we have 120 different clubs and societies. So everything from Model United Nations and performance, drama, art, sports, every kind of sport you can think of, and including a few that you might not have heard of or thought of before. As William alluded to earlier, we all have our quirky sports that each school tends to play, but there are a huge raft of opportunities for your child, both within the school and out with as well. And the international outlook, coming to a school in the UK, they're not just mixing with UK pupils. You know, we host the largest Model United Nations here in the country with over 600 delegates from all over the world, each representing their country and arguing and debating some of the most hotly debated topics in the country and are globally around the world. IB school, as an IB school, of course, part of the curriculum, an integral part of the curriculum is the international outlook. Diversity, of course, we have over 45 different nationalities for our pupils within the school. And then many schools like ours have spent a lot of time developing partnerships with universities, the top universities, to allow additional opportunities for our children, as well as outreach with different organizations. We have a collaboration with 2 universities in the United States where we are part of a research opportunity into pancreatic cancer. So our pupils are involved in a STEM project that spans over 2 years, where they are helping scientists in developing mechanisms to help identify solutions for pancreatic cancer. And those partnerships, or the additional opportunities, are a real key mark of independent schools. UK schools have long since been a really good pathway and a foundation to an excellent university, whether that be in the UK, United States, or whether it's in Europe. We send pupils, there's a sample of the universities that we sent pupils to over the last few years. So the Russell group of universities, which are the top tier group of universities here in the UK, as well as Ivy League and top colleges throughout North America, Canada, Bocconi in Milan, University of Madrid. So these are the universities our students have chosen to go to. Our sixth form team here is fairly extensive. We have a dedicated team for overseas universities, including the US. We do SAT, ACT preparation as well. So your child will have really, really good instruction from experienced people and guidance in terms of choosing which pathway they want to go down and which universities they're very interested in. Our alumni network, of course, schools that have existed for 150 years have a large alumni network, and they infiltrate not just top organisations in the UK, but all across the world. And they provide excellent opportunities for our pupils in terms of mentoring. It's always extremely challenging for young people to be able to gain that essential work experience, or being able to have that additional insight into certain careers before they finally make their choices. And certainly our alumni network, we have a very sophisticated platform that enables our alumni to connect with our pupils here at the school in sixth form, and also after they've left to go into university. And those internship opportunities that are very scarce, particularly in the current climate, they're able to help assist with those opportunities either at their organisations or through their own network. Oxbridge practice, Oxbridge interviews. So with a large alumni network, of course, they've attended Oxbridge, Oxford or Cambridge universities. There are doctors, vets amongst them, and they provide invaluable support when preparing for interviews for university as well as job opportunities and work experience. So our alumni network are heavily engaged and involved here with the school. And when it comes to choosing which school for your child, you are in a very, very strong position because you already have the contact of Writers' Key and Which Boarding School. They know our schools in the UK. Do use the services of an agent. There are hundreds and hundreds of independent schools, and as William said earlier, not every school is necessarily right for your child. There is expertise there. The individuals that are hosting this webinar are very experienced. They know our schools well, and they will be able to, by getting to know you and your child, be able to guide you accordingly. And I think that's really all I would like to say. Unfortunately, my lovely videos of my campus and aerial shots haven't worked for me today, and I do apologise. But I hope that to be able to answer some of your questions a little later. And without further ado, I would like to pass you on to Sally, who's the head of admissions at Malvern.
Thank you very much, Michelle. I'm just trying to get my share screen to work. There we go. I hope everybody can see that now. Thank you very much to Michelle and to William and Yaya for the introductions today. I'm going to just share with you some very similar comments to Michelle, I guess, in fact, because we're very similar schools, but take you through some of the aspects of Malvern College, which was founded in 1865. So as Michelle said, there are a large number of independent schools in England who have very long heritage and traditions. Malvern is one of those. We are a co-educational boarding school for approximately 640 pupils. We like to think of ourselves as a big enough school to have all of the facilities that you would expect in one of the UK's leading schools, but small enough to maintain a very individual and personal approach, meaning that our numbers in each of our houses are quite small, and that our staff, including our house parents and our tutors, get to know each of the pupils that we have very individually and can tailor the support that we provide very individually. Although, like Haileybury, we are sat in some beautiful countryside, we're a little bit further away from London. We are 2 hours from London, a direct train route. We obviously provide all the transport to and from various airports, and only 40 minutes from Birmingham. Which doesn't mean to say that we are not up with what current technology and thinking is. We very much are, and we are very close to a lot of the innovation that goes on, particularly with our connections to companies such as Kinetic, which are advanced in development of certain AI technologies. We like to think of ourselves as having a lot of space for big ideas, and what that means is we like to have space not only for the traditional sports that you might think of and our outdoor activities, but also making use of the lovely Malvern Hills for perhaps some of those pursuits that you've not come across yet, including night mountain biking, canoe polo, which I'd not heard of before I joined the school, and various other activities. We have, in the picture that you can see on your screen now, you can see both our senior and junior cricket pitches. In Malvern, they are hallowed turf, and cricket, alongside a number of our other sports, is what Malvern would be known for in both girls and boys cricket. So we have a very rich history, and what we like to talk about is, from that rich history, and what we've learned throughout that rich history, is that we provide a transformational learning experience. And as Michelle has already said, and William, yes, we provide outstanding educational provision and academics. We are supported by a strong supercurricular programme of societies that stretch our most able academic students. And we have a full programme of co-curricular and supercurricular activities. But actually the true transformation comes from what we call the Malvern qualities, from developing in our young people those qualities that you would want your youngster to come out of school with, and which they will need as they go into the world beyond Malvern College. Those attributes of resilience, of kindness, of integrity, of being able to work collaboratively is what we think of when we talk about a transformational learning experience. So I'm just going to share with you now a very short video, which is just an overview of some of the facilities that Malvern College has to offer. So as I mentioned, our history has been known for innovation and ambition, and particularly from the development of radar technology in the Second World War right through to our early adoption of the IB curriculum. We would be in one of the top 5 schools in the UK for our IB results, through to the latest developments that we've used for to keep our timetable going as normal through COVID-19 from our online learning platform. So very much with our academic focus, we have a very broad academic programme that covers both IGCSE, GCSE, a pre-6th programme which is very popular, and both A-level and IB in our 6th form. And as Haileybury, many of our students go on to top universities across the world, including Russell Group and Ivy League. And what we like to develop is not just learning for learning's sake, not just being able to pass exams, but being able to integrate both IQ with EQ and certainly CQ, which is cultural quotient, so that our students have developed an intellectual curiosity and a love of learning which goes beyond Malvern College. The elements around cultural understanding of how they fit into the wider world has never been more important. So we really looked to instill in our pupils that element of curiosity, which goes into our co-curricular programme for celebrating passions, as you've just seen from our video, the vast array of sports and arts and drama opportunities there are, alongside community engagement projects. And as Michelle has said, certainly in the IB programme, the element of community service and sharing skills into the community, whether that's in our local community in Malvern or via a charitable group, on which we have numbers, that element of being placed in your world is very, very important. So we have a diverse co-curricular programme for personal development, and as I've mentioned, from the social participation to elite competition. So you might well be somebody who is at the top of their game in either cricket or rugby, or maybe fencing or horse riding, or you might just enjoy it because it's something that you enjoy doing outside of your academic studies. But what we like to see is that all our students take part in a co-curricular programme, because it's very good for a healthy lifestyle, for mental well-being, and learning those transferable skills of leadership and resilience. As I mentioned, we have 250 acres of playing fields, as well as the beautiful Malvern Hills behind the school. Water and sand-based astros for hockey and tennis and football, and dedicated facilities for racket sports. Now, these facilities aren't just new to Malvern. Most schools in the pedigree of Haileybury or Malvern College would have extensive sports facilities and gym facilities, dance studios and swimming pools. We all tend to boast some phenomenal facilities in that area. The arts at Malvern is particularly strong. We're very proud that we've just become an all Steinway school for music. In 2019, we opened our brand new theatre with an extensive provision for pupils to undertake not just only stage productions and their drama exams, but also the technical aspects of putting on productions. So we offer a technical scholarship within our drama scholarships for those that like to be perhaps more behind the scenes, understanding lighting, production, sound development, and scenery production. Outdoor pursuits, as I've said, is a very, very big part of Malvern College, and that's not just the standard combined cadet forces or the Duke of Edinburgh, but that's also trips and expeditions that we undertake to really stretch and to push our pupils just slightly outside of their comfort zones. And last year, for example, a group of 10 pupils travelled by human power alone from Malvern College in the heart of Worcestershire to Paris, including being the first school to paddleboard across the British Channel, which was obviously something that involved an incredible amount of risk assessing. But risk assessments alone, pupils need to feel that they can expand their horizons and they can take on these challenges, because life is challenging. And as we've seen for all of us in the last few months, being able to adapt, to be able to think on your feet, to be able to embrace changes that none of us could have expected is something that our young people are going to need to have the skills for, to embrace the world that is changing so rapidly. There's a picture there on the screen. You can just see where our expeditioners were going underneath the London Eye. But supported by all of this is a very strong network of care and support to all our pupils. We, like Haileybury, have an integrated house system where our day and boarding pupils live and study together. We don't have separate boarding houses for our foundation year, our year 9s, nor do we have for our 6th form. We believe in creating small communities, and particularly for our young pupils that come in at 13, it can be very intimidating to come to a college such as Malvern with the beautiful buildings as they are, to suddenly find themselves in a huge dining hall with 600 pupils they've never met before. To have the house as their base, to have that as their community and their support, where that's where they go back to for break, for lunch, for afternoon snack, for their evening meal, where they can be themselves, where they can relax with their friends in their house, and have lots of people around them they can go and talk to, whether that's a peer mentor or a buddy in their house, whether that's their house mistress or master, whether that's their tutor or even the resident assistant in the house. There is always somebody on hand that anybody can go and talk to should they have any concerns, feeling a little bit down, perhaps feeling a little bit homesick in those first few weeks away from home. It's very important that our house structure supports those individuals right from their first day, right through to their leavers ball at the end of year 13. It's those authentic partnerships that we build with the pupils, and also with parents and guardians, that actually make school life so successful. So when our pupils leave Malvern College and they go on to either university, maybe to take a gap year, maybe even to do a degree apprenticeship, we hope that they have been through this transformational experience with us, that's developed a clear sense of purpose and fulfillment in our pupils, and they have ambition, whatever that might be, to make a positive difference. And that's what defines a Malvernian. They're confident and resilient, they're open-minded, but they're humble and kind. They're able to work collaboratively and have an independence and curiosity which will take them through life. Like many schools, Malvern is a family of schools. We have a number of schools overseas, as well as 2 prep schools. So we are a school from the age of 3 right through to 18, although at Malvern College itself, the base that I've just shown you, we would take pupils from 13 to 18. And just before I hand back, I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about COVID-19, because I'm sure you must all be thinking, well, how on earth do boarding schools, have you coped in this period, and what plans are you putting in place to ensure safety of those pupils who are coming from overseas, who are coming away from home, maybe for the first time? I can understand, I'm a parent myself, how worrying that must be. So for the college, we have developed a series of interim guides. We've just released the 2nd interim guide because the UK government are developing their relaxation of the restrictions under lockdown, and as that happens, more and more information is released, and we've just had the latest release of information from the government on Thursday. So our interim guide, which will be updated again at the end of July with the latest thinking, was sent to our parents and new parents yesterday, and with it we sent this very short animation, and I just thought I'd share this with you just to see what colleges like Malvern, like Haileybury, are putting in place to give parents reassurance that it's perfectly safe to come to school in the UK. Thank you very much. And I'm going to hand back now, I think, for questions and answers. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, Sally. That was great. Thank you, William. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Sally. That was amazing. It seems that you're all set for students to come back in spite of COVID-19. Michelle, I just want to add that one of my dearest friends went to Haileybury, and one of the sports she undertook was aviation. So she used to go for her pilot training there. So that's the kind of length and breadth of sport that they offer. It sounds absolutely fascinating to be studying here, and we have lots of questions. Let me open with one for Sally, which is, how many Indian students are there at Malvern, and are there Indian passport holders with parents living overseas?
Yes, yes, we do. In fact, I came to Mumbai and Delhi in December 2019. I had a phenomenal trip, and we have additional Indian students coming in. We are mainly European. Our main intake internationally is European because of the IB, but India would be certainly next, along with Kenya, for overseas pupils outside of the EU.
And do you offer pre-U?
We offer pre-6, which is
pre-U. What is that? I don't know what that is.
Not something we do. No.
Okay. Okay. Michelle, a question for you. My daughter is very reserved. How would you make sure she makes friends and makes the most of the opportunities available at boarding school? How do you deal with shy, introverted children?
Sure, and yes, not everybody that comes to boarding school are extroverts and ready to jump in and embrace everything. And that's why the houses, as with Malvern, we have a vertical structure in the houses, which means that the children are, they have their big sisters in the house who are there, who've been there for several years, who've done it, who've seen pupils come in regularly, who've been a bit shy and reluctant at first. So those peer mentors in the house are really key, because they are buddied up with someone, and the older sixth formers in the house are there to also help them settle in, make friends and get involved. That's also the role of the house mistress. The house mistress is there to make sure that your daughter is making friends and joining in and meeting people. Her tutor, who she'll meet with several times a week, will be there to chat to her about what other opportunities she might want to try, and encourage her just to challenge herself and put herself out there a little bit more. It is necessarily easy for everybody, but I think in a boarding school environment, it's probably easier than it would be anywhere else, because most of the pupils are away from home. There will be lots of other girls like your daughter, and they'll try these things together. They'll take those steps that they've not taken before, and they'll do it with their friends. And I think that's something that children find when they get here. They didn't realize how easy that was going to be. When you're with a cohort of pupils that are away from their families, they don't have mum and dad to go home to, or their friends on the doorstep. They're here. Their friendships and their connections and their family in the house are here. And therefore they find it a lot easier than they thought they would. But certainly there'll be lots of encouragement, and there are lots of checkpoints along the way with tutors and HMs, the matron in the house, the peer mentors. So they can't be overlooked. So your child will be known. And I think that's one of the fundamental aspects that Sally was talking about, that the school is big enough to be able to offer a huge range of opportunities, but not so big that we won't know your child. And at Haileybury, our staff live here on campus, so we like to think that we know each and every pupil here, and we know when they're not themselves, or they're looking a little bit sad, or we can spot when there's something wrong.
Oh, that sounds amazing. And I think there's a question around Is it a 7-day week? Maybe both of you can answer that. Is it a 7-day week, and what do students do over the weekend? Is the weekend also quite busy, planned, and how do children have spare time at all?
So at Malvern College, we are a full boarding school, which means we don't offer flexible or weekly boarding. It is a bit of a dying breed. I'm sure Haileybury is the same, to not have your school empty out on a Saturday night or a Saturday lunchtime. So we are quite insistent that if you come on board at Malvern, you take part in the whole boarding experience, which includes Saturday school. So Saturday morning is school timetabled, Saturday afternoon is activities or sports matches, if that's what you're doing, or community charitable activities. And then Sunday is a rest day. We don't have chapel on a Sunday. But there are plenty of activities to get involved in. That might be house-based, there might be a house trip to go to the local, do laser questing, or go to see a historic site in the UK. It might be we have a cottage in the depths of Wales. You might be on a visit to the cottage in Wales. You might be going shopping in Birmingham. There's a full list of activities that makes, and in fact our day pupils often want to come back on a Sunday because they want to take part with their house in those activities. So yes, we are a full 7-day-a-week boarding school.
Right.
Exeats and leave-outs, leave-outs and half-terms are when pupils go to their guardians or go home.
Sure. And Michelle,
Yeah.
is that the same at Haileybury? It's pretty
Very
much
similar.
very similar.
Sunday being a rest day is actually quite an important one. In boarding school, life is busy. You're on the go from early till late. And actually, when you get to Sunday, we have Sunday brunch here. So when I walk my dogs around campus on a Sunday morning, it's very quiet. The students are all still sleeping. They're having a lie until late, going into brunch. And then either the older ones will head off and do some shopping. We get fabulous opportunities for theatre tickets, to art galleries, everything that you might expect on the doorstep of the country's capital. So we have an array of opportunities for them to take part in. But if they want to relax with their friends, that's absolutely fine too, because Sunday's their day. But yes, the other 6 days a week are pretty busy.
And there's a question here which says, which talks about, can you tell us the percentage of full boarders versus flex boarders or day students? Is there any sort of ratio that you have in mind?
So we don't have flexi boarders, so we're the same as at Malvern. So we are your boarding or your day at Haileybury, and we're about 75% boarding, with about 25% of our pupils as day pupils.
Okay. And what about?
We would be very similar full boarding and day, and 23-24% day.
Sure.
The day, again, like Haileybury, our day pupils are fully integrated into the boarding house, which means they are also there for the extended day. They have the option, so they will often come in for breakfast or for registration in the house. They will stay in the house and they will eat in the house exactly the same as the boarders, and they have the option to stay right through till 9 o'clock, 9:30 in the evening, to take part in activities, to do homework, hall. Different schools have different names for that. In the evenings, and the only criteria we have is they have to have left the boarding house by 9:30 in the evening. They're very welcome to come back at the weekend. So because we believe, and again we sound very similar to Haileybury, that community, that we don't have any areas of our community that could be divisive. We don't want to have a boarding and day ethos. If you were in the school and you were sat having lunch in one of our boarding houses, you wouldn't be able to tell who was a day pupil or who was a boarding pupil.
Wonderful, wonderful. William, I have a question for you. When you're kind of, advising students about boarding school, what are the key things that they should be looking for?
I mean, if they're coming from abroad, one of the key factors, which has been brought up by Michelle and Sally, is to find an environment where there are, the largest proportion are full boarders. Unfortunately, we find there are too many boarding schools in the UK now which call themselves boarding schools, but actually have a very, very small number of boarders. And it's not much fun for an international student who may have a busy and fun time during the week and then find that the weekend the school almost empties. So a critical factor is to find a school which is, if you want to be a boarder and you want the best boarding experience, first and foremost, you need a school which has the majority of students as full boarders. And then following that, it's going to be very much individual. So, what are the interests of that child, etc. And once we've got all that information, we'll be able to recommend schools that would be the best fit for that child.
Sure. I think there's also a concern if the international student has no family in UK, would they need to arrange a guardian in UK, or how does that work?
Yeah, legally, a student has to have a guardian.
Right.
That guardian can be very proactive for some students that we have, and they're utilised a lot. In some cases, the guardian actually really is there in name only because the parents, are over in the UK, or the child travels back. But legally, there has to be a guardian.
Right.
If I could just add to that, is that the guidance on guardians is recently changing, and there is a lot tighter, going to have to be a lot tighter vetting of guardians going forward because of
Sure.
safeguarding. So the safeguarding regulations are changed. I don't want to get into too much regulation, but just to be really clear that schools have a responsibility to ensure that the name that we're given as the guardian is a suitable and appropriate guardian for that pupil. If they're in the UK, even if they're outside of school, we have a responsibility for knowing where that child is and that they are being looked after appropriately. So all schools will be updating and their guardian policies and being a lot more involved in those guardians. And what we would say is please use an Aegis registered guardian company.
Yeah.
Right. And William, typically after they've contacted you, how long would it take before a parent has got sort of a list of the boarding schools, a recommendation from you?
To a certain extent, it depends on the time scale. Every September, probably in the middle of September, I'm contacted by families that want a school now at that moment, in which case, we have to act really quickly. I think the quickest I've ever done it from contact to the children being in school was 2 days. But we will never make recommendations until we've spoken to the parents, built a picture of the child, and then read school reports about that child. So we get the parent perspective and the child perspective, because we don't think we'd be doing our job properly if we didn't do that first. Having got that information and had that conversation, usually we can get recommendations back to parents within 24 to 36 hours.
Okay. Yes, we get that a lot also, in terms of people want the list before anything else. And they don't realize, that it takes so much back and forth to first understand the child and then suggest the school. So
yeah,
yes,
I mean, we're very much child focused. So
right.
Very, very occasionally you have parents whose aspirations are unrealistic for their child, and in those circumstances we would simply say that the type of school you're trying to get into for your child, they're not realistic and your child wouldn't be happy. Sure. And we'll be honest with them about that.
Right. I don't know if we have enough time, but there is a question about what is the application process? Is it possible to sort of give a very quick summary? Either Sally, Michelle, one of you can just tell us what is the application process? I mean, what are the sort of building blocks that a student needs to go through for that?
I don't, Michelle, would you like to answer that, Michelle, or do you want me to?
I think we're very similar, aren't we?
Very similar school, so we would do very similar things. So we would work very closely with William at Which Boarding School, and we would take the information that William has provided with the school reports and have a discussion with William. We would then contact the parent, contact the family, and we would do a Skype or Zoom or online interview to begin with. then we would, if that went well, we would then introduce the family and the child to various members of the academic team. That might be a housemaster or mistress, that might be the head of lower school, the head of sixth form. It may be either the deputy head or the headmaster, depending on who's available in the school at that time. But we would certainly want that staff outside of the admissions team to be involved in the process, and for the family to get to know wider members of the school community, not just the admissions team, because after you've come into the school, you probably won't see the admissions team again. So it's important that the family get a real feel before they have to make any further decisions. At that point, we would, if the family then wanted to proceed, we would ask that the family register with the school, and we would start our entrance tests. And then, depending on the results of the entrance tests, we would then go through the process of looking at what house was availability at that point in the year that the application has come in. Ideally, we love all of our parents to come and see the school, and I'm sure Haileybury is the same. There is no better way of knowing whether the school is right than through the doors. You know, as a parent yourself, you know, your instinct will tell you once you've walked through the doors whether it feels right. You can do all the research into academic results and lots of online research and looking at all the schools. The key thing will come down to, do you feel that that is the right? Have you got a rapport with the housemaster or the housemistress? Because they are the most important people, aside from the academic teachers, that you as parents and the child need to build a relationship with. So we can't do that at the moment. Obviously, we're hoping that will become more available going into September, but that's what we would say, is please try and come and see us, and I'm sure Haileybury would say exactly the same. Please come and see the school in all its glory.
Absolutely.
Because that's the only way you will know as a parent whether it feels right, and you will know. And often that's what it comes down to. Did it feel right on the day? Did the person that I spoke to make me feel welcome and comfortable and happy?
Sure.
And I think even among similar schools like Malvern and Haileybury, actually amongst the schools that William selects for you, you'll go there and they will feel completely different. But you do need to, that intangible sort of you know, atmosphere and everything else, you need to feel that and be able to picture your child there. You know, be able to look at the pupils and talk to the teaching staff and think, are they going to inspire my daughter or my son? And can I see my daughter or my son here? Would they feel comfortable here? And I think definitely, other thing that I would add to Sally, Sally's comment is bring your children along. You know, parents walking around deciding on a school without the children involved always makes me feel a little bit sad, because I think they need to be part of the process, and for sure they'll have a different criteria to you in some ways, but it's nonetheless valuable, and I think just involve them in the process really.
I think the other thing to say is that there is often peer pressure from one family to another, and we often find that when somebody applies, they say, well, my friend said that I needed to come here, or my friend is going to this school or that school, or their son or daughter is at this school or that school, and we have that quite a lot, and what we would say is, please make up your own mind, because for your child it might not be the right school. And certainly parents, and we understand that parents coming from overseas where they haven't got a gauge really, they particularly a first-time parent coming to the UK for education, they have no gauge as to what is right. So of course you're influenced by what your friends and relatives may say, but all I would, please come and see for yourself, because you will only know what's right for your child when you've walked through those doors.
So I think we're out of time, but I have one fun question that I can't resist asking, which is, are you allowed to take your PlayStation to the school?
So at the college, I can't speak for Haileybury because I don't know. No, you're not allowed to bring your PlayStation, but in each of the houses there is a PlayStation, and I can't remember. Some have a PlayStation, some have an Xbox, some have both, and we have lots and lots and lots of inter-house competitions, so inter-house singing, music, drama, chemistry, inter-house photography, but we do also have an inter-house gaming competition. So we do know that that's quite important to some children, and as a mum of a 12-year-old boy, I also know it's very important that that has to be at the right time, at an appropriate time, within realms that we want children to experience
Absolutely.
the outdoors. So whoever the question came from, I know how you feel. I have a son who's an officer, so yeah.
And Michelle, is it the same at Haileybury?
It's exactly the same. And
exactly
in terms
the same.
of devices, the pupils are all tied into our network. It's the same with social media. We want to make sure that the children get sleep. And teenagers aren't really good at regulating themselves. So they do need a little bit of help with that. And we ask parents to help us by ensuring that they don't bring those devices or have unlimited access to social media or whatever, whenever it suits them. I think, you know, we need to make sure that they're using it responsibly, and that they also have plenty of time for study and for sleep as well. So.
Excellent. So I guess that rests the person's fears as far as the PlayStation is concerned. But thank you everyone for such a fabulous session. Thank you, William, for bringing Malvern and Haileybury to the platform. And thank you, Sally, for joining us. Thank you, Michelle. Reem for being behind the scenes and supporting me through it. Thank you, all of you. Really look forward to another session. Maybe we can do something later on in the year.
Thank you very much for inviting us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.